Yeah.
I'm curious about like, what's the inverse of this? And I'm really curious about like how you feel about like a lot of the elements of this like men's rights movement, where there is a lot of this sort of like misogyny and you know, and like a lot of men who are quote unquote like recovering nice guys go to like, a man has to be a man, and you know, I need a woman to like sort of just you know,
be docile.
Yes, to be a woman, and like her role is to be more submissive and whatever. And it yeah, and it gets like really bizarre. Like, do you run into that? And like
yeah, I see a lot of really dangerous, sad, you know, and like ultimately understandable, you know, but some really shit stuff out there. Yeah. Let's just say that. And look, I think it's very human nature, and I do see it more in the masculine, because we tend to be black or white, you know, detail. We want things to be nice and simple and clear. We can't focus on and see too much nuance, right? That's not the kind of the hunter's way. And so we often want things to be black or white. I see this all the time in so many ways for guys, and it will just play out anything in this kind of like all or nothing with things, you know. And the moments I hear the words all or nothing, I think, all right, we're going to explore that, right? Because that is fucking easy, all or nothing. You know, I'm 12 weeks on this exercise program, you know, or I'm not doing anything. It's like, have some nuance. And we do that all throughout our lives, and we do it with things like that. The pendulum. One of the big things that's just below the surface for a lot of nice guys is, if I'm not doing this, then I have to be an asshole. You know, that's kind of one of the beliefs and fears. It's like, no, what? That's the other end of the spectrum. And I'm so terrified of being seen as an asshole that I'm happy just to keep playing all this shit and being seen as a nice guy. But unfortunately, for a lot of guys, in many things, this being one of them, we pendulum. But the idea of a pendulum is that eventually it comes back to the center. And this does happen for a lot of guys, you know. Like, I think about it as well like this. If your whole life, your actions are like throwing a dart at a board, but you're not really aware of it, right? And then someone brings it into your attention and you're like, oh shit, this is what I'm doing. I'm throwing a dart and I keep missing to the left. And so often what I'll do is I'll overcompensate, you know, and I'll throw to the right. The aim is to, cool, okay, now I'm starting to get the feel to then come more towards the bullseye. But when we just pendulum, we say stuck over there, which again, for so many guys is like, oh, this felt very disempowering and disconnected, and I got walked on. And, you know, Leanna, to what you said about some of those, you know, experiences you've had, like the resentment and all that kind of stuff, that's my resentment, but I'm making it yours. I mean, what a fucking bullshit thing to do to start with. But again, I can have compassion for that, right? There's a lot of hurt and insecurity running that entire life. But if I don't deal with that and I don't own it, and I just keep pointing the finger at you, because guess what? That's easier than facing it and owning it and dealing with it myself. Then, you know, I risk being over in that camp of, for lack of a perhaps more nuanced term in this context, like woman hating, putting blame on those who I think wronged me in a simple sense. And then that I can get a sense of power. But here's one of the things that's very true for a lot of guys in that environment. That is false power. That is a crutch, because it's the power that I think I'm getting, right, over others. It's making up for a lack of power that I have within myself. And so that's really what the pendulum has got to be about, coming back to center, where I'm actually empowered here. I don't need to put that blame and grab energy, you know, and the sense of power from others. So yeah, there's a lot of that stuff now. You know, there's all these terms. Every 6 months, I have to look up a new acronym that makes its way to me, you know, and it's like, incels and all this shit. And I think, fuck, this is dangerous shit. But again, like I can have a lot of compassion for that, because there's some hurt little boys running these guys' lives. And it's just, you know, covered in justifications that is a cling to a sense of power because of a lack of power within.
Yeah. Mike, can I tell you? So I went through like a few months phase of like where I kept meeting these guys and we'd like hit it off. And then it comes out that they're anti-feminists, that they believe that the woman's main job is to be a childbearer. But they were attracted to me and drawn to me. And I think it's because I'm the opposite of that. And that's really what they want, but they're made to believe that they want this other thing. And so they're forcing that. Like one of the conversations I had with this guy, like I actually kept hanging out with, like, nothing happened, but I like hung out with him a couple of times because I just kind of wanted to get to the bottom of it. And I was like, who hurt you? And he told me like his previous, like he had a girl in college that broke his heart, right? And she was like this feminist, and he doesn't trust feminists now. And so then he's like super Republican now, and he's on this, you know, manly, like Trump supporting. To the other end of the pendulum, totally
right? It feels easy to do that, right?
Yeah. And so then he's moving to Texas, which makes sense. And and he's telling me, I said, well, what is it you want? And he's like, well, I want a partner. And he's like, I want us to both be bringing an income. And I said his name, and I was like, you're not going to get that with what you're saying you want. Like, if you want a partner, like, you're not going to, if you want like a docile, like at home, like caretaking wife, like you're not going to have a partner where you're both bringing in income and supporting the relationship. And he goes, yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah, like there's this thing, I mean, there's many things that seem to kind of, you know, take root and feed themselves through worlds like that. One of them is this idea that I see that, you know, like, no, a woman shouldn't challenge you, right? And again, what I think we tend to do is we absolutely balls up language. Oh man, language is so important. And so we have these, you know, like ideas of what that means. I mean, there's so much in and around all of that for men and for, you know, all of us. And so it seems like there's this idea that if a woman is challenging you, then yeah, it brings all this other stuff. Like, it's someone that you want to show up for and that invites you to be your best. That's what challenging you in a partner is. But because we have this other idea about, you know, a lot of those guys, we have this other idea about what that is. A partner shouldn't challenge you. She should, you know, basically make life easier for you, not challenge you. It's like, so then the only option there is to get someone who is basically a maid. And like, you know, getting past like household chores and all that kind of stuff, like, that's not a partnership. That's by default, that's a hierarchy. And there are going to be, I would say, like fluctuating versions and levels of and areas of hierarchies all the time in relationships. That's part of navigating two different people coming together. But I mean, it's so immature is what it is, right? Because it's essentially saying, I can't have an adult relationship with another adult. You know, I need someone to be subservient. It's like, well, where the fuck is your backbone, bro? If you can't actually meet someone. But of course, it's easy to look past that and go, yeah, it would be easier to have a partner who just does all the things for me and da, da, da. And, you know, like, obviously, when you look at humans, the female gives birth. The female by nature is the caregiver and nurturer. That's something that we will never have. And I think that's something that is fucking terrible to take away from women. And I think we've done women a massive disservice in saying, you know, you need to also build a career, and don't do that. You know, like, some women are so proud of and really want to be nurturing children. That doesn't necessarily have to be their whole life, but we've also created this big cloud of mess in that. But that's the kind of thing that, you know, those kind of guys will run with. And again, we'll just pendulum to the outside of, you know, the spectrum on that kind of thing. So yeah, man, it's a shame. And again, I can have compassion for it, but, you know, if you want to have a partner, then that is a partnership. The simplest word to replace that with, I think, is teammates. And so how you build your teammateship is up to you guys, right? And that will have lots of nuance and stuff in there. But if you want to be met by someone, then there's going to be an element of challenge, because that's what, you know, the representation of the healthy feminine will do. Will invite you and test you. Can you be a place of safety for her? And just bringing home the bacon, just providing, and then just going about bulldozing your way through life isn't necessarily safety for that person. because we kind of have this idea that safety just means, I have more status, I have more money, I have more muscles and a bigger dick. Like, can she feel emotionally safe to be all of herself with you? And I would put it to you, we're obviously going to a generalization, but I would put it to you, that kind of dynamic that you're talking about there, that's not it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally disempowered.